All right, Kenny, first day with the team. What do you take away from today's training session and just being with the team for the first time today?
Yeah, the intensity was fantastic today. I think after having a long trip back from Seattle and then a day off, coming into a reentry day with a week that we look forward to where there's 3 games in 8 days, you couldn't ask for more from the guys. The intensity, the intent was really there.
Thank you for that. We'll start with Mark Berman. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Kenny, twofold question. One, how difficult is it coming in this scenario and taking over this late in the season? And part two for that question, since you've been with the organization, how much does that help?
Yeah, it helps a lot. And I think part one and part two, they kind of tied together because I was in preseason with these guys. So yes, there's some new players that have been added throughout the season. But I also am in the facility every day. So I have a relationship with all of the guys, at least so far as we know each other. We've spoken. So I think it's important. And I think that helps when something like this happens and we have to step in with a very limited amount of time left in the season, but also until our next game. So the key for me is really them understanding what the structure is going to be, what the expectations are going to be, and what my goals are. So I think it's important that knowing me is great, but it helps in speeding that up.
One other quick question. Have they mentioned to you, have y'all discussed the potential of you being considered for the job on a permanent basis?
Yeah, my goal right now is to make us competitive, to gather momentum and end the season in a way that's positive. So I think for any of those conversations to happen would be selfish for me. It would be selfish of me when my job is to make sure that I take care of these players and see this season out and end it in a positive way.
Thank you.
No problem.
Up next, we'll go with Richard Hanna. Go ahead, Richard. Hey, Richard. Go ahead. Welcome back to Richard. Up next, we'll go with Tom Bogert. Tom, go ahead.
Thanks, Edgar. Just you kind of already laid out your goals for what you want for the rest of the season, what little remains, but, what will change, I guess, for fans watching this team, for anybody watching this team, what will be different about this team than the first 29 games?
It's a great question. I think for me, the first day is really important for them to understand that the expectations are for us to be competitive in these 5 games, and that there is going to be a structure and there is going to be an outline that I think will benefit the players to see some of these games out, to get the results that maybe we've dropped. I think the one thing that this team has done is they've competed. Had we dropped some results? Yes, but I think they've competed. And that is a piece that is really hard to gain to a team. So my job is to build a structure and an outline and maybe tweak a couple things that I've seen to get them over that little final hump, to get them those 3 points, to see out some of these tougher games.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll go with Cesar Rosell. Go ahead, Cesar.
Good day, Kenny. Thanks for the time. So you mentioned being competitive the last few games, and it's a couple of questions, but can you elaborate on what you mean by being competitive? What does that exactly mean to you and the team at this point? And also, can you give us an update on some of the injuries, like Hector Herrera? Is he expected to be available this weekend?
Yeah, so I can just tell you right now, I mean, we're working through some injuries, and that will come out in time. What does competitive mean to me? I think we need to continue to create chances, and we need to really take advantage of some of the opportunities that we've had throughout the last 2 months. So chance creation will be something that will be a big focus on, and then really protecting our goals. So we've had some unbelievable performances at the back and as a team defensively, but really making sure that the guys understand, hey, we're in this, and this is the structure, and this is how we want to see out games. So the chance creation will be a big focus, and then obviously the defending of the team.
Thank you for that. Up next, we'll go with Victor Ariza. Go ahead, Victor.
Hi, Kenny. With your background with Houston Dynamo too, I think naturally the question is how much will younger players get minutes? We've seen the debut of Brooklyn Reigns. Obviously, guys like Marcelo Palomino are on fans' minds, Juan Castilla. How much will young players get minutes, or is it, an outlook of looking to next season and getting some chemistry between some guys like Darwin Quintero, Herrera, Carrasquilla? What can you share on that front?
I think like always, players earn opportunities to play. And I think I've said this before when I was with Dynamo 2, it's not as easy as having 1 or 2 or 10 good games with Dynamo 2. There's a lot that plays into it. There's a lot that the club looks into that. So, coming in, looking at the roster, we'll see who steps up and wants to compete. I think that's what's the most important thing is with 5 games left, the competition of this group, it needs to continue to be intense. And I laid that out to the players today is that, the way I coach, it's about intensity and it's about competing and really fighting to be on that field. So the door is open. These guys have opportunities, so I think them hearing that and feeling that, I think it's exciting. But I also think that there are guys that are senior guys that also want that and see that and feel that. So the table's open for these guys. They can, whoever is going to compete and give us the best chance on the weekend will play.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll go with Alex Barra. Go ahead, Alex.
Great. Coach Bundy, first of all, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay, sir?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Coach, you mentioned the players. What is their mindset now after this change? I'm sure like any other coach, you've got to win them over if you haven't done so already. Obviously, you've been with them, but could you share a little bit of what the players are thinking after this move?
Yeah, and you've asked the question that I think is the most important. It's how the players feel, because we can talk about, how I feel or what I'd like to do, but my job is to make sure that they're put in the best situation to go out and compete for the fans and for themselves on the weekend. So to me, that's the main focus. And one priority for me is for them to get to understand who I am more. And on a more personal note, we've been doing individual meetings. And again, I want this to be very clear. It's been one day. So, we've probably tried to pack in 3 months worth of work in 15 hours yesterday. But I do think that one of my strengths is I have no problem spending all the time in the world, sitting down, answering questions, getting to know people, and making sure that they understand my job and my goal over the next 5 games is to put them in the best position, to put them in the best scenario. So all of the tactics and all of the little tweaks that we're going to make is to hopefully put them in a situation where they're more comfortable, they're a bit freer in their mind to go and express themselves on the weekend. And I think that's what we all want. Fans, coaching staff, the club. We want these players to feel when they step on the field, especially at home, that they have a clear mind and they can be themselves and they can compete, understanding that they're doing it together. So it's a lot. I mean, today we've got a number of meetings. Tomorrow we've got a number of meetings, individual meetings. We've got team meetings. We've got line meetings. All of these things to just open the door to make sure that they understand what's expected of them. I'm also a big believer in an open door policy where I like feedback. I like to know how they feel. Yes, I have clear ideas. And yes, at the end of the day, the decision is going to come down to me on who plays and how we play and things like that. But I don't think that that's a decision I can make without understanding how the guys are reacting to that information. So it's been a really big push over the last day and a half to make sure that they hear my voice personally, individually, and as a collective team.
Coach, I'll close with this one. What is your relationship now with Pat? Has he said, hey, Kenny, this is your team, go and conquer? Do you have that support from him and from the organization?
Yeah, they've been very clear with the decisions that are made are my decisions. Now, I'm a collaborative person. I think that if I make decisions solely based on what I see without collaborating with very intelligent people, then things will get missed. So you look at the staff room right now, and it's very clear, Pat and Asher are in and out. We've got the first team staff. We've brought in Dan Roberts, who's going to help with Dynamo 2. And we're collaborating on what is the best way to attack these two groups over the last bit of the season. So, yeah, I'm going to be given the opportunity to do what I see and what I think, but I want it to be clear that those decisions are a collaboration of all of the intelligent people in the room.
Got it. Coach, thank you for your time, sir, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Up next, we'll go with Luis. Go ahead, Luis.
Hey, Coach, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Coach. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think that this team needs in order to be a competitive one, as you mentioned? Is it at the coaching level? Is it the players? Because, talking to the guys and even Paulo before he left, you can't really blame just one side of the field, right? Like there's the coaching aspect of it where the strategy comes in and whatnot, but the players are the ones that ultimately that play on the field. So, Fafa mentioned earlier today, everybody takes responsibility as a group. So what do you think that this team lacks or needs in order to become that competitive one that you want it to become?
Yeah, I'm going to spin that and be positive with that, because I think looking back is important, but what we're really trying to do is look forward. So what I think we're going to bring is structure. We're going to bring a clear and concise structure, and we're going to try and do that in a really short amount of time. Paulo and I saw some things very closely, and obviously there's some things that I think we can improve. But I do think that what we're going to do is I want to give these guys confidence when they step on the field that they've been given all of the information for them to play free and be successful. So a lot of that, and I talked earlier about it, the chance creation. Can we get our wingers to understand when we have players on the ball like Coco and Hector and Matti, that we know when those guys find that space, this is the movement that they're going to look for to play this pass. Can we get Sebas in areas where the service is being played to him, where his strength is in between the 6-yard box? Those are the types of things. Can we get the back line to really focus on when we have the ball, especially at home, because we've been dominant with the ball at home, that even when we're with the ball, we're counter preventing. We're tactically looking at the game and saying, okay, if we lose the ball, how do we stop this counter? I think those are the types of things that we're going to talk about. And like I said, this is a short amount of time. So I don't want people to think that we're going through 100 slides and saying we're changing everything. No, we are really clear and concise that there are a number of different items that I think if we clarify, at least we have a better chance. And then the great thing is the players, it's interesting that Fafa said that. I think it's very brave of them to take responsibility. That's a very brave thing to do. It's easy to always look at other reasons why things don't work. But I want them to know that this is an opportunity for them to go and express themselves. 2 home games, the first 2 games, within 3 days apart. Like these are things that as a player, you should look to and go, wow, we really have an opportunity here to flip the momentum that happens in PNC Stadium.
Thank you, Coach.
We've got time for a few more. Up next, we'll go with Leopoldo. Go ahead.
Coach, when you have to plan or make a plan, how much of your practices goes into the direction of providing entertainment to the fans?
I would ask, what do the fans like to see? I think that's an interesting question. How much goes into providing entertainment to the fans? I think the fans like to see winning games.
Coach, I'm sorry that I interrupted, but my question is addressed to an area in which I would like to know on the planning when you have to practice, because most of the young coaches, they are so based on the results, and they don't look into entertain the bleachers, and most knows how to defend. Most of the team knows how to defend, but not all knows how to attack.
Yeah, I think there's a balance, right? There's a balance of how we defend and how we attack. And I think at the end of the day, this is a results business. These players, they want to win games. How we win games is important. It is important. But I think I speak for myself when I say that, when we end the game at PNC and we have 3 points, that feeling for not only the players, not only the club, and not only the fans, I think that sometimes will take more priority than necessarily did we score the greatest goal, or did we have to spend 10 minutes at the end of the game protecting our goal, and then getting to celebrate with the supporter section. So I would say that, young coaches, old coaches, in between coaches, at this level, it's about making sure that you are focused on the results and how you get those results. And for us, that entertainment, what those fans will leave with is, how did the team compete? Did the team do what they needed to do to get us those 3 points?
Thank you for that. Victor, go ahead.
Kenny, obviously, with the departure of Paulo, he also takes his assistants. Wondering what you can say on the clarification of who your assistants will be, how much that support system is important to you. And I think, because one thing here too is that for the first time this season, the first team for this ending stretch might have an important resource in an MLS legend like Roy Lassiter.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it will be me. It will be Roy. Roy will be helping me as well. Roy's a vital piece of this. I think he brings a lot of not only experience, but a lot of it in the locker room as well. He knows what it's like to be in the locker room. He has a great feel for the guys. And then we've got Tony Visual as well. So Tony obviously was the director of our high performance players before this. He had been helping Paulo over the last couple of weeks. He stayed on board. Dan we're collaborating with him because he obviously has been part of that, but Dan's helping in that aspect. And obviously the staff that are still in place. So I feel very confident in the group because we're all pretty clear in what the expectations are, and we know each other. So it's been great to work over the last day because we hit the ground running. There's very little to learn about each other's personalities. And, my connection with the first team has helped because obviously with Zach, I know him and I've spent time with him. Calf, I've known him, I spent time with him. So when we start this process, there's not new faces where you're getting to know new personalities and how people work, which I think is important for the players. I put it back at that. They see a connection between us and they see that we're all going down the same road. It helps them in their trust in what we're trying to do.
It's not the ideal situation you might have wanted to arrive at a position like this, but I think it has to be said. You spent a lot of years with the academy and you got promoted to Dynamo 2, and now you're here with the first team. This has to be a proud moment for you, I would think.
Yeah, I will process this moment once I get done what I want to get done, which is really helping this group see out these last 5 games. I said it earlier. I think it would be selfish of me to sit here and think about, what I've done in the past and, how fortunate I am for this opportunity. I want to keep my head down and I want to do everything I can for this city, the fan base, and these players to see out these last 5 games and end it with the momentum that I think this group can end it with. So I think that's an interesting question, and maybe we can address it after the 5 games are over, kind of a reflection of what it was like. But the last day and a half has been about business, and it's been about how these guys are feeling and how can we help them.
Thank you, Kenny, and best of luck.
Thank you. All right, guys, we'll cut it here with Kenny. We'll be right back with Dynamo General Manager Pat Onstad. All right, everyone, we're joined now by Dynamo General Manager Pat Onstad. We'll go ahead and kick things off with Mark Bourbon. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Pat. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Mark?
Great, Pat. Thank you all for coming to me early. We need to get your thoughts on why you chose to make the decision that you made at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. A lot of people have been asking why not let him finish the season out if he came to that conclusion. The reality is we did come to that conclusion not that soon before this decision was finally made on Monday. But the big one is we want to start searching for a new coach. And I think with Paulo, the work he's put in here, the effort he's put in, his commitment to the club, if you go and start searching for a coach behind his back, I think that's the wrong message to send. And I think that's unfair to him. I think he was more than worthy for us to do this the right way. So unfortunately, with 5 games to go, we're going to make the switch. And now it's my job now to go try to find a coach to lead this group in 23.
Pat, is Kenny considered a candidate for the job on a permanent basis, or just interim? That's it for now.
Yeah, we're still pretty open at this point. We have some profiles and what we're looking for. But I think at this stage, Kenny's got an opportunity to show what he can do. But he is an interim. He knows that at this stage. He's got 5 games to show what he's capable of doing, and he's done a fantastic job with our second group. So we'll see what happens. But he's got a good staff behind him and got a lot of support.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, we'll go with Tom Bogert. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat, for taking the time. Apologies for sounding a little direct, but given it's 29 games into the first season with a new head coach, obviously the plan wouldn't have been for it to last this short.
No.
I guess what went wrong with how this coaching search ended out and how this season ended out?
Yeah, I think for us, first and foremost, it is a results business, and I know it's a cliche, but the reality is we're dead last in the West. I don't feel our roster. We invested a fair amount of money in our roster, and Paulo was part of those decisions. He was on board with Sebastian Ferreira. He was on board with Hector Herrera. Zeka is a right back. There's a lot of guys here that we decided to bring in, and we spent some money to get these guys, and we don't feel like we're performing at that level. What I would say is he didn't lose the locker room. I still think like the guys were fighting for him. But for us, we were looking forward and trying to see some momentum going into the next year. And unfortunately, results just really weren't going our way.
What will be different with this coaching search, or will you guys do anything different in what you're looking for or where you're looking?
Yeah, I think we have a little bit more time than we did last year. It was definitely a bit of a rush, but I still think I don't regret hiring Paulo. I think Paulo's a very good coach, and I've been saying this to a few people, but if you look at, Jesse Marsh and Greg Berhalter, who are probably the 2 best coaches, young coaches anyways, at this stage in their careers, there's no disrespect to Bob and to Bruce, but they struggled in their first year, Jesse in Montreal and Greg over in Hammarby, but both of them are fantastic coaches. And I think that's one thing certainly on the criteria, I think for us, is that we'd like somebody with experience at the top level to kind of carry this group through. And one thing I've learned, Tom, I think in this seat and being here is the years of not being successful here is probably more difficult to overcome than I expected. It's been pretty difficult.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, we'll go with Alex Barra. Alex, go ahead.
Yes, Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Alex. Yeah.
Coach, give me 1 second. I apologize, sir.
Coach, though. Don't call me coach.
You're right. You're right.
Definitely, and Tom, for the record, I'm not on the search. I'm not one of the guys you're trying.
You're not one of the candidates.
No, absolutely not.
Pat, thank you for being with us, and we appreciate it. My question has to deal with ownership. Was this a decision you made by yourself? Was it with Ted?
It was, it's my decision, clearly, but I'm also in constant communication with ownership. So they knew the thought process as we're going through this, as the season was developing. So they were aware of what was going on and had their opinion, so to speak, but in the end, it's my decision and the responsibility lies with me.
One of the things Paulo said, Pat, was that he felt he didn't have the roster to compete at the highest level in this league. Maybe earlier you said you disagree with that you did have some, the talent to compete and certainly not be last in the West. Am I missing something in what he said versus what you're saying today?
No, I don't think you're missing anything.
Lastly, what are you looking for now? Are you looking for a veteran, someone that's done this at the international level? Are you looking for, is there a type of coach now that you're looking for, sir?
I mean, I still go back to our something, and Paula was trying to implement this, but we wanted to be a proactive team. We want to be a team that's on the front foot and dominates, and especially here in the heat in Houston. And unfortunately, our home record, it is what it is. It's not what you'd hope for with a team that's going to be aggressive in the front foot. So that's one style we'd like to see implemented, but that's easier said than done. And the other one, though, as I'd mentioned earlier in this call, was to make sure that somebody has experience coaching at the highest level. I think that's important for this group. I think it's we've got a lot of work to do to get forward, to move forward and be successful. But I think that's the type of coach that we need.
Pat, thank you for your time, sir. Good luck.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
Up next, we'll go with Samara Perez. Samara, go ahead. You're still on mute. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Pat. So question for you regarding MLS Next Pro. The team's obviously going into the playoffs with the great job that Bundy has done. Who will be the leader now for?
So what we've done is part of his Dan Roberts, who is his first assistant there and has been with the club for a long time, worked his way up through the academy. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was actually a drafted player here. He's a guy that has a lot of ties here. He was assistant, so he's going to be working both with the first team, helping with film and pregame scouts with the first team, but at the same token, he'll stay and be the head coach with the second team. I think we wanted continuity with that group. That group has done a fantastic job, not just on the field, but off the field too. These guys are a really tight-knit group, and they've worked at that. The group has, and we're excited to see where they can go in the last two regular season games, and then see what they can do in the playoffs.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll go with Cesar Procel. Go ahead, Cesar.
Good afternoon, Pat. Thanks for the time. I have two questions actually. One, were there any attempts throughout the season to maybe talk to Paulo and maybe give him some insight or some outside perspective on things that he could have maybe done better to not be in this position right now? And,
sorry, I'll answer the first one. Go ahead. You can take the second one.
The second was with the new coach. Are you expecting to find a new coach prior to the winter transfer window, or is it going to be a similar situation as we had this year where
great questions. I think first one, and hopefully I remember the question. I go one at a time here at this age. So
the first one was, were there any attempts to maybe correct Paulo?
We would speak to Paulo. So obviously when you're in this, if you've been here to HSP, where we work literally about 10 feet away from each other. So you're bumping into each other on a regular basis. You have small conversations and also scheduled conversations. So, once a week we would sit down and have a formal conversation and go through, the game plan, what little, sometimes a lot of just housekeeping things around the area, but there's been discussions in terms of if he needs help and what he needs help with and suggestions from us. And I think, that's for both, for Paulo, myself, and Asher Mendelson, our technical director, for us to reflect back on. And could we have been more helpful? You'd have to ask Paulo that question. I like to think that we were trying to be helpful. And I think it's difficult when you're in it as a head coach. I know I've been on coaching staffs. It's hard when things aren't going your way. You're not getting bounces. You're not getting calls. It's difficult, and sometimes to get out of that is tough. So that would kind of be my answer to the first one. And then the second one, in terms of getting a coach in, one of the reasons why we did let Paulo go with 5 games to go, so we can start the search. So we're literally not even 72 hours into it. Granted, having said that, it's probably cut over about 60 applicants already, but we have a profile in terms of what we're looking for. And I mentioned, some of the attributes that we are looking for in this call before, but if we can get someone in quickly, great, but we want to make sure it's the right person. And if that takes us into the recruiting stage, which we're already starting, we're not going to wait for a coach to come in and say, okay, this is the player I need. We will start making choices and decisions, whether we have a coach in place or not.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll go with Luis. Luis, go ahead.
Hey, Pat, good afternoon.
Hey, Luis.
When Paulo was hired, it was mentioned, and from the very beginning and throughout the season, that this was going to be a project long term. And even, he mentioned, when I asked him maybe about 2 weeks ago or so, that the process of turning the Houston Dynamo into a winning team again may take 5 different coaches, may take 60 different players, whatever that may be, right? There's no timeline. But even last week for the Future of Soccer event where Ted was in town, he mentioned that you and Paulo still had his confidence, even though he was disappointed with the results, right? So taking all of that into consideration, the question is, why not give him more time? Why not give him maybe another season?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. Ultimately, it was a decision we didn't feel like there was momentum or we were moving in the right direction as a club, and ultimately that for us, it's the coach's job to try to get that momentum going, and we didn't see it happening. And our concern was that the way we were playing and the way we were going is that it was going to be tough to recover for next season. And as you'd mentioned, and Paulo had mentioned, and we'd all mentioned, it's going to take time here. But we felt like if we had to go down there and we start off on a downward spiral, it's going to be tough to get out of it quickly. Now, whether that's my personal thought process behind it, doesn't mean it's the right one. And I think I've said this before. The decision lies with me. If we're in the same position next year, that's a big problem for me. I mean, that's my fault. It's not Paulo's fault. It's not Asher Mendelson's fault. It's my fault. So I think we want to try to get ahead of it and try to find the person we think can help continue to grow. And I have to give Paulo credit. I think every time someone gets let go, it doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't successful in some area. One thing we talked about was culture, and Paulo did a fantastic job changing the culture down here at the building. And for people who've been around this club, they say there's a definite different vibe down here, a positive one. And he worked hard at that. But for me, obviously, in the end, it's results on the field weren't going the right way. But he did a lot of hard work, and he was committed to this club, and I think he did a lot of good things for us.
So a follow up on that one. So what are the expectations for the new coach? And obviously, it's going to be winning, right? You always want to win, but the realistic expectations. Are you expecting for things to turn around within a season, or how much understanding is there of the growing pains that you guys may need to go through in order to get there to the top of the table?
I mean, this year I've never experienced a year like this, and I'm pretty sure the only time I think was 1994 in my professional career that I've been a part of a club that had a record this bad. So it's been difficult. I don't expect that next season. I expect us, and I expected this year for us to fight for the playoffs. Was it a lofty goal? Yes, absolutely. And do I think we'd be hosting a home game? Unfortunately, no, I didn't. I don't think we're there yet with a top 4 team. Do I think we should be closer than we are to the playoffs? Yes, I think we should be. Whether that's in a playoff position or just shy of it. But I think we should still be having some games that matter at this point of the season. Unfortunately, we don't. So next year, we need to be more competitive, and we need to be fighting for those playoff spot. I mean, this club needs to get some sustained success. And this year, outside of the first 7 games, you really just haven't seen it.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
We'll go to Victor. After that, we'll go to Leopoldo. Go ahead, Victor.
Hey, Pat, wondering if obviously Ted's been willing to spend. Wondering what you can share on the financial backing. I know a lot of fans have, they have big wishes, right? Marcelo Bielsa, Tata Martino. But even if you wanted to go get, an MLS coach that's already established, negotiate with another MLS club, for example, do you have that type of financial backing to make a move like that?
I think, like I said, we're 72 hours into it. The conversations I've had with Ted is that he wants to support the search. So at this stage, it'd be tough for me to answer. I haven't spoken to Bielsa and I haven't spoken to Tata, so I couldn't answer those two. While they're both fantastic coaches and I love the way both of them play, it's at this stage it's early on, so I couldn't answer that question. Certainly from a financial standpoint, that would probably end up coming in and being the highest paid coaches in the league, or close to what some of the guys, some of the experienced guys are on. So it's a big financial commitment, but if we felt that was the right push, then that's when we go to ownership and see what they feel like.
To follow up quickly, maybe Paulo didn't have all the support. Obviously, that's a move also for accountability. How accountable is your staff as well? Do you feel you have the right support system? You mentioned the lack of a scouting network, that kind of thing. Do you have the right people in the room?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And in terms of accountability, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, essentially that's what this is, and we're all accountable. I kind of touched on it earlier. If we're in this situation next year, I mean, I'm the one that has to hold my hand up, and I'm accountable, and I'm holding my hand up on this. There's things I'm sure I could have done better. I could have helped this. And I think everybody here, all the staff, all the players, we had a meeting this morning, and that was essentially the message, that these 5 games do matter because everybody's being evaluated, and that includes the staff, that includes, Kenny and his group, that includes, the executive group, myself, Nick Kova, Asher Mendelson. So we're responsible. This isn't Paulo's record. This is our club's record, and that's the issue, and that's what we have to try to find a way to make it better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll go with Leopoldo. Go ahead.
Mr. Onstad, let's see if I can make it with my English. What I'm trying to understand is how I can evaluate the progress into getting into the new culture for this team. It has been very difficult for me to understand. Is there any way, Mr. Onstad, to put it into specific goals that I can follow and trace the progress on achieving goals? Because it seems to me that results sometimes put extra pressure on young coaches or coaches that doesn't have experience, and they will need to know that the good system, good practices, and entertainment for the fans also are very important, not only results.
So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer your question because I'm not sure where the question was. But
do you think? But do you think it will be easier to tell coach, I want to see at least 10 chances to score every game? Something more specific than a new culture.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, there are analytics and whatnot. Expected goals, possession in the attacking third, chances created. Those are things we all look at when we're evaluating game performance. But we're also that's what the fans see for 90 minutes. And obviously, the results are first and foremost. So when you do say how do you have results? How do you evaluate? It's based on winning and losing on the weekend. But ultimately, you still want to have a certain style, and maybe that's where you're trying to go here, and something that the group can believe and the fans can identify with. And that's what we'll keep pushing for and trying to attain that, in what I like to call a proactive style. And that's what we've been trying to work with.
And
I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm trying to help you.
Well, I would like to see more specific on that, but that's fine. And Mr.
Yeah, I think Billy, people evaluate their teams and clubs, GMs, owners. It's pretty rare that they'll sit out there and say, hey, we expect this analytic to be successful. So I think what you're asking is thing that's very internal, because that's also giving away what we would call trade secrets in terms of this is what we're looking for and how we're trying to play. And if some team knows, oh, listen, this is what their goal is to try to be successful in a game, that it certainly helps another club. So those are things internally that we discuss, that we look at, that we measure. But it's a fair question, but I don't think that's very public. There's very few teams here that will say, hey, we need, seven entries into the, zone 14 to be successful every game.
Thank you for that. Up next, we'll go with Adam Winkler. Adam, go ahead.
Hey, Pat. Earlier, you mentioned something to Tom saying that, overcoming the rough stretch that this franchise has experienced has been a little bit tougher than you envisioned. Can you kind of detail the uphill battle that you and this club, are facing?
Yeah, I mean, one interesting piece, and I hate going back to it, but I think the sign, not even going back to it, because I think when you watch teams in our league that are successful are teams that get leads and hold on to leads and protect them for the rest of the game. It might not be the prettiest soccer to be able to hold on to leads, but they find out ways to close out games. And, and every year there's always teams that are known for not being able to do that. And I think, unfortunately for us, and when I talk about like being ingrained, is right now we're going through that stretch where we're getting leads in Seattle against a team that's desperate, and the next thing you know, we're losing. Or the same in Minnesota. We're in Dallas and Vancouver. So you can kind of just keep going down the list. But it's not just us. There's other teams in our league that are having the same problems. But for us, it seems to be a history. This seems to be a 9-year history of not being able to hold things on. And sometimes that's players. Sometimes that's coaching. Sometimes that's management. Sometimes that's even, believe it or not, is staffing. It's the belief, the system within your group. And I think that when I talk about kind of systemic issues within our club, that's one factor. I don't know if that helps.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll wrap up with that. We'll have media resources later today.
Thanks, everyone.